5% and 8% GST slabs will stay. 12% and 28%, which was earlier, has been now abolished. All GST announcements will essentially mean that this will be implemented, which will be the new GST reforms, the next generation reforms that was in the making. There was a lot of anticipation around it, will be implemented now from September 22nd. Finance Minister is headed to the National Media Centre, where the announcements will be coming in any moment now. What we can tell our viewers is, remember, the consumers as well as the industry have been watching this meeting very, very closely. So where did it all begin? It was when the Prime Minister spoke about it from the Red Fort in his Independence Day speech. Let's listen in to the Prime Minister, and then any moment we'll be cutting across to the National Media Centre.
इसी कड़ी में अब जीएसटी में नेक्स्ट जनरेशन रिफॉर्म होने जा रहा है। इस दिवाली जीएसटी रिफॉर्म से डबल बोनस देशवासियों को मिलने वाला है। हमने इसका पूरा प्रारूप राज्यों को भेज दिया है। मैं आशा करता हूं कि सभी राज्य भारत सरकार के इस इनिशिएटिव को सहयोग करेंगे, जल्द से जल्द इस प्रक्रिया को पूरा करेंगे, ताकि ये दिवाली और ज्यादा शानदार बन सके।
So which are the sectors which are going to see that massive cut? Siddharth Zarabi joins us live. We also have Santosh Mehrotra, economist and visiting professor at Center for Development at University of Bath. I'm going to begin with you, Siddharth. I'm looking at the proposal which came from one of the finance ministers, which the suggestion had to do with the life and health insurance policies. And that was placed before the GST. So when we say that there are new, the slabs will now be 5% and 18%. Earlier slabs of 12% and 28% have been abolished. So just explain to our viewers what will be expensive and what is likely to be cheaper.
Okay, very clearly, and as we await the Finance Minister's final confirmation of what has finally been decided, it's clear as per sources and my colleague Karishma Asudani, who's been breaking the views of different finance ministers, a bulk of the proposals for the rate cuts have been approved pretty much unanimously by the GST Council. That kind of puts us to look at 175 odd broad items of mass consumption public goods, which will see cheaper rates, including insurance. As far as the slabs are concerned, the 5 and 18 mean that many items have moved to a lower rate. Some items may have moved to a higher rate, but there is a 40% special rate, which could also be called a sin sort of tax rate, where by all accounts, at least a dozen items, if not more, will be taxed at that higher rate. So anything to do with luxury, Maria, is going to be taxed at a higher rate. Items of middle class consumption and below that have been moved to a lower rate. Clarity on insurance with regard to the specifics is required because there is an attached input credit issue and other procedural matters that we will wait for the broad timelines. But by all accounts, what the Prime Minister promised in terms of a double bonanza is being delivered, has been agreed upon. There's also one more element before I toss it back to you, Maria. 8 opposition states had raised concerns about possible revenue losses. Earlier on, Finance Ministry officials had told us that higher consumption will offset some of the revenue loss. So we'll wait for that final number. But what has been agreed upon is that the centre seems to have indicated to the states that if there are any losses, we will compensate you. This has happened in the past, and that system is therefore being offered by the centre to get through the rate proposals. So the bulk of the Prime Minister's Diwali bonus now expected to be delivered well ahead of the one.
Okay, and Siddharth, does it mean the end of the 56th GST Council meeting? Because we can see those visuals now coming in. Finance Minister leaving the venue and heading to the National Media Centre, where she will be addressing the press conference. So, is it today?
Maria,
Is it the end of the meeting?
From what we know, that this was a 2-day meeting, and typically sometimes agenda items and discussions don't get finished on one day. And earlier on, only the finance ministry officials had indicated that it might take 2 days. There are multiple items on the agenda. Rate rationalization is one. There is also, as the government has promised and as the Prime Minister has indicated, the reforms that are related to procedures, the administration of the tax, which I believe could be addressed. As of now, my colleague Karishma Asudani a little while back told us that the rate rationalization aspect has been finalized upon. So let's wait for the Finance Minister to come out and tell us whether everything has been wrapped up. But for now, it is very clear that the real meat, as far as the public is concerned, as far as the Janta is concerned, the Diwali bonanza has been agreed upon.
Okay, so the Diwali bonanza, what will it actually mean? The indication that is coming in, Siddharth, by way of sources, of course, is that it will be GST rate on footwear and apparel prices are likely to be down to 2,500 to 5% is what we can tell our viewers. And also the news that is coming in of footwear and apparel prices up to 1,000 are taxed at 5%. Beyond the threshold of 12% GST is levied. And we are breaking that new slabs which are now going to kick in. And all that is going to happen from 22nd of September is what we are being told. A number of states, Siddharth, Karnataka, Punjab, West Bengal, had asked the centre to provide some support because they were sensing some kind of loss in revenue protection.
So, Maria, as far as that is concerned, not just the states that you mentioned, all the 8 opposition ruled states, including we have heard from the Jharkhand Finance Minister. Yes. And I can also add that some BJP ruled states, including some of the larger producing state economies in this country, had these questions. Frankly, at this stage, no sums can be attributed, although there are various estimates by economists, because we will also have to wait for an uptick in consumption on account of lower rates. And Maria, very quickly, let me just also explain to our viewers what is really happening. Around 99% of items that were currently taxed at 12% will move to the lower slab of 5%. So pretty much everything that was at 12 goes down to 5. The list of items runs into hundreds and thousands. Around 90% of goods which were at 28% will drop to 18%. Again, a massive drop. And there is currently a 4-tier structure of 5, 12, 18 and 28 that came into effect from July 1, 2017. But if you add multiple other elements, frankly, India's GST, there are 45 slabs.
Yes.
So that is being compressed. Just 2 or 3 items which will be key beneficiaries. You touched upon a few, and there will always be caveats. For example, in footwear, what we have picked up is that footwear below 2,500 rupees in cost will be at the lower rate. Higher priced footwear will be at a higher rate. So in all of this, there is a clear Janta Janardan mass public approach. If you have the capacity, you will have to pay higher. And connect this with Prime Minister Modi's overall economic philosophy over the last 11 years. Those who can pay should pay. Those who need support should get some relief. And clearly, visuals on the screen of the Finance Minister, Maria,
yes,
who will give us all these details.
And she has MOS Finance Pankaj Chaudhary also sitting next to her, and Aditya Srivastav accompanying the Finance Minister. The GST Council meeting has come to an end. SC Garg former Finance Secretary, is also joining us on this broadcast. But we are going to cut across and will increase the audio as well as Finance Minister addresses that press conference. Okay, so as we wait for that, SC Garg, your thoughts? It is much anticipated and much before what was seen as the timing of this bonanza. It has come way ahead of its time.
That's correct. The expectations were raised by the Prime Minister's address on 15th of August. This was not very timed very well, because as has happened, when the announcement was made, people started expecting that there would be substantial reduction in cars, air conditioners, other consumer durables, etc. So why not postpone the purchases, which is what happened. And that is what made the government to expedite, to compress the timetable. And I'm happy that they could finally do it today, and have decided about 22nd to be the date from which it will be effective, which takes away from this Shraddh period, and you come into the Dashera and that festival period. So it's timed well. Now we can make up for it. Let us see how it is received.
Okay, let's just hold on to your thoughts. We are cutting across to the Finance Minister now.
We concluded the meeting, and from there we have come here. And let me start by saying the Honorable Prime Minister actually set the tone for the next generation reforms on the 15th of August when he spoke from the Red Fort. So, and he desired that we give the benefit to the people at the earliest. He mentioned Deepavali, but I'll go through the decisions in detail a bit, but this reform is not just on rationalizing rates. It's also on structural reforms. It's also on ease of living, so that businesses can do their business of working together with the GST with a great ease. So we have corrected inverted duty structure problems. We've resolved classification-related issues. And we have ensured that there will be stability and predictability about the GST. Rate rationalization, of course. We've reduced the slabs. There shall be only 2 slabs. And we are addressing also the issues of compensation cess. Ease of living, simplifying registration, return filing, and refunds. I'm not getting into greater details. You'll get to know about it. But then these reforms have been carried out with a focus on the common man. Every tax levied on common man's daily use items have gone through a rigorous looking into, and in most cases the rates have come down drastically. Labor-intensive industries have been given a good support. Farmers and agriculture as a whole will also benefit by the decisions we have taken today. Health-related also will benefit. So the key drivers of economy have been given a prominence. And much before I get into the details, I want to thank every member of the GST Council, every finance minister who attended the GST Council today. There was no absence. Everyone was present. We've had a day-long intense discussion, but I'm grateful to each one of them. At the end of the day, they said, we're all together for the sake of the common man. एक भी रिजर्वेशन के साथ नहीं समर्थन किए, मगर पूर्ण मन से भरपूर सपोर्ट दिए हर राज्य के वित्त मंत्री. इसीलिए मैं जीएसटी काउंसिल को आभार कहना चाह रही हूं कि लंबा चौड़ा डिस्कशन चला आज, मगर आखिर हर मेंबर इसके लिए समर्थन दिए. इसीलिए मैं धन्यवाद कहना चाह रही हूं. इधर उधर के छोटे छोटे बात हो सकता है, मगर कंप्लीटली रेट रैशनलाइजेशन में सभी मंत्रीगण समर्थन दिए. एंड मैं इस विषय में आभार पहले व्यक्त करना चाह रही हूं माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को, क्योंकि पहले से almost for 8-9 months he's been after me saying आप कुछ GST में राहत दिलाओ जनता के लिए. उसका इंटेंसिव वर्क किए हमारे MOS compensation cess के ऊपर शेयर कर रहे थे group of ministers. He worked very hard with all of them. Samrat Chaudhary ji worked on the rate rationalization. And not only the chair, but the members of each of these GOM have worked very hard. I am absolutely appreciative of every one of the ministers. इस समय का मांग को समझ करके समर्थन दिए, इसलिए उन सबको मैं आभार व्यक्त करना चाह रही हूँ. There's also, of course, trade facilitation measures and process reform, वो भी इसमें शामिल है, जिससे enhanced verification measures which are aimed at curbing fraud have led to complex documentation, उसको भी simplify करने का, और data analysis वगैरह है. Process reform के ऊपर मैं विस्तार से आपके question answer के समय में जवाब दूंगी. मगर primarily, I'm sure all your interest is to know where is what, which one comes down in rate. उसमें एक just indicate करते हुए I'll stop my input. If Revenue Secretary has anything more he can add. उसके बाद आपके question answer करते हुए हम बाकी सबको cover करेंगे. Common man and middle class items में there is a complete reduction. Reduction from 18 or from 12 to 5%. I list out those items, all of whom have come to 5% from either 18 or from 12. Common man items such as hair oil, toilet soap, bars, shampoos, toothbrushes, toothpaste, bicycles, tableware, kitchenware and other household articles have all come to 5, whether they were in 18 or whether they were in 12. Similarly, reduction of GST from 5% to nil. 5 से 0 में जाने वाले items indicate कर रहा हूं. Ultra high temperature milk, the UHT milk, chena or paneer, all the Indian breads will see nil rate. So roti kisi ke upar bhi, chapati or roti or paratha or whatever it is, they all come to nil. Reduction of GST from 12% or from 18% to 5%. इसमें food items बहुत सारे हैं. नमकीन से भुजिया है, sauces है, pasta है, instant noodles है, chocolates, coffee, preserved meat, cornflakes, butter, ghee, ये सब 5% में आ रही है. फिर reduction from 28 to 18%. इसमें मिडिल क्लास के एस्पिरेशंस मीट करने वाले बहुत सारे चीज हैं. एयर कंडीशनिंग मशीन्स, टीवीज which are over 32 inches, all TVs now at 18%. ये I want to underline, all TVs are now at 18%. Dishwashing machines, small cars, motorcycles equal to or less than 350 cc are all now coming to 18. Agriculture goods such as tractors, agricultural, horticultural and forestry machines for soil preparation or cultivation, harvesting or threshing machines, including straw or fodder balers, grass or hay movers, composting machines, etc., are all coming down from 12 to 5%. Reduction of GST from 12 to 5% on 12 specified biopesticides. Also from 12 to 5 is natural menthol. So किसान के लिए उनके products के लिए जो वो उपयोग करते हैं उन सब में it has come down. Again from 12 to 5, handicrafts and also labor intensive sectors. What are they? Handicrafts, marble, travertine blocks, granite blocks, intermediate leather goods. ये सब 5 में आ रही है. Reduction of cement from 28 to 18. क्योंकि घर बनाने में मिडिल क्लास के लिए सीमेंट इतना आवश्यक है, इसीलिए 28 it has come down to 18. Health related items, 33 life-saving drugs and medicines, and they all come down from 12 to 0. From 5 to 0 and 3 life-saving drugs and medicines used for treatment of cancer, rare diseases and other severe chronic diseases. There are several drugs and medicines coming down to 5 from 12. I'm not listing each one of them out. Like that, very many other items, diagnostic kits, reagents, blood glucose monitoring system, all of them are coming to 5%. Similarly, spectacles and goggles are for correcting vision. They are also coming down to 5% from 28. I'm sure all of you all are interested in knowing about automotive sector, about which you have been frequently asking us. From 28 to 18% on small cars and motorcycles which are equal to or below 350 cc. Reduction of GST from 28 to 18 on buses, trucks and ambulances. Uniform rate of 18% on all auto parts, irrespective of the HS code. Three-wheelers from 28 to 18 again. So I move to one very important thing on inversion of correction of inverted duty. The long pending inverted duty structure problem is getting corrected for the man-made textile sector by reducing GST rate on man-made fiber from 18% to 5% and man-made yarn from 12 to 5%. So that will take care of every anomaly that was there in terms of inversion. That's getting sorted out. So this actually gives effect to government's objective of the fiber neutral policy. So that's really getting seen in our action today. We are also correcting the inverted duty structure problem in fertilizer sector by reducing GST from 18% to 5% on sulfuric acid, nitric acid and ammonia, which are very important for the fertilizer sector. Renewable energy is the next. Reduction of GST from 12 to 5% on renewable energy devices, parts for their manufacture, such as biogas plant, windmills, wind-operated electricity generator, waste-to-energy plants, devices, PV cells, whether or not assembled in modules or made up in panel, solar cookers, solar water heaters and systems and so on. Should I stop there and leave you all to ask questions? Just want to highlight the last one, that there is a special rate which is 40%. Actually, almost all goods are between 18 and 5. If there's any change, they only can shuffle between the 18 and 5. There is one special rate which is only for sin and super luxury goods. That special rate of 40% has also been proposed and it's cleared. That will apply only to pan masala, cigarettes, gutka, and other tobacco products such as chewing tobacco, products like zarda, unmanufactured tobacco and BD. All goods including aerated waters containing added sugar or other sweetening matter or flavored, caffeinated beverages, carbonated beverages or fruit drink or carbonated beverages with fruit juice and other non-alcoholic beverages, excluding those specified at lower rates, will all be covered under 40%. Mid-size and large cars, motorcycles of engine capacity exceeding 350 cc, aircraft, for example, helicopters and aeroplanes for personal use, distinctly for personal use, yacht and other vessels for pleasure or sports are all under 40%. So I think I have covered most of it. One last point on the RSP. GST will be levied on retail price, which is the RSP, instead of transaction value on pan masala, gutka, cigarettes and other tobacco products such as zarda, scented tobacco, unmanufactured tobacco and chewing tobacco. Again, one other point which I will conclude with. Insurance services from 18% currently will go into 2-3 different categories. I'll say that to you. Exemption of GST on all individual life insurance policies. Whether term life, ULIP or endowment policies and reinsurance thereof, to make insurance affordable for common man and increase the insurance coverage in the country. Exemption of GST on all individual health insurance policies, including family floater policies and policies for senior citizens, and reinsurance thereof to make insurance affordable for the common man and increase the insurance coverage in the country. I think I'll leave it there. We'll answer questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we move on to the question
There's
and answer
one more. Sorry, I'm getting tempted to say one last thing. There are 4 points which I want you all to take into consideration. All this will be effective 22nd September 2025, which is the first day of Navaratri. The changes in GST rates of all goods except for pan masala, gutka, cigarettes, chewing tobacco, products like zarda, unmanufactured tobacco, BD, will be implemented with effect from 22nd September 25. Except for these, for all items, the new rates will come into effect from 22nd September. I hope I'm clear on that. But pan masala, gutka, cigarettes, chewing tobacco, products like zarda, unmanufactured tobacco and BD will continue at the existing rates of GST and compensation cess where applicable till the loan and interest payment obligations under the compensation cess account are completely discharged. I hope I'm clear. Every item will come under the new rate from 22nd September, except for these tobacco-related products, which will continue on the 28% and compensation cess where applicable, till such a time we completely repay the loan. Based on this decision of this set of tobacco products continuing till some time, based on that decision, the Union Finance Minister and the Chairperson of the GST Council is actually authorized to decide on the actual date of transition for these tobacco-related products as soon as the loan and interest is cleared. Yeah, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Before we start the question answer session, please introduce yourself before asking the question. Also speak into the mic because this is being live streamed, and also raise the placard. We will take the questions one by one. So, number 9.
Ma'am, this is Priyansh from Money Control. I wanted to ask what is the possible revenue loss that has been estimated due to the rate cuts? And secondly, for the states, has there been any discussion on how the revenue will be compensated to them?
As the Finance Minister explained, the objective of this proposal, which is the GST rate structure rationalization, accompanied with process reforms. So the first request I will have is to have the appreciation of the proposal in the manner in which it has been prepared. in order to not distract ourselves with issues which will be an outcome of this process, but the core principle of this exercise needs to be appreciated in totality. We have estimated a figure. We expect that the net fiscal implication, we would not call it as a revenue loss because that doesn't seem to be the correct terminology, but net revenue implication of this proposal is expected, we have estimated it to be around 48,000 crores. This is on the consumption base of 23-24 because that is where we had all the segregated data. What I would also request is to have to appreciate this exercise better. It's important to also understand why looking at a particular number of revenue implication and highlighting it in a manner which is not proper may not present the correct picture of this exercise. The reason being, one, typically the rate rationalization exercise would result in buoyancy effects. We do expect, as mathematically one may calculate based on consumption of 23-24, but economically that is not how outcomes will evolve. And we do expect buoyancy to play a major role because of this rate rationalization exercise in enhancing the revenue. In addition, there is also an effect on the consumer behavior. What he spends on and how much does get influenced by price, which is going to be expected to get positively influenced by this exercise. We also expect compliance to improve due to this exercise. Madam explained to you how rates which were at different levels, where classification issues would be rampant, like sectors like food or transport, auto parts, etc. Once rationalized, it will improve and enhance compliance because many of these disputes would not necessarily result in revenues, but would linger on and would end up having a lot of resources, both of the business and the department, in struggling to settle those disputes. So compliance would also have a very positive effect on the revenue generation. Finally, there is a technicality that when the rates change, the rate of the value chain itself changes, and tax, is paid through ITC and cash, and the actual implication of that will have to be worked out. I would just like to highlight a number from before just to explain how these changes do play out. For example, when earlier the average rates were around 15.5 in the earlier part of the GST, the compliance in the form of GST TB was around 85 to 90%. Now the compliance has improved to almost 97% as the rates have come down. We do expect these positive changes will have and we believe that in this entire exercise will be fiscally sustainable both for center as well as the states.
54.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am. Shishir from Hindu Business Line. My question is about the anti-profiteering because now so much rate reduction is there and we do not have the anti-profiteering mechanism. As of now, we understand that GST 80 can take only the pending cases and the cases directed by the courts. So what kind of mechanism we are going to have? And the second question is about the clarification on the revenue implication that 48,000 crore is on annualized basis or just for the FY26, ma'am?
On the first question of anti-profiteering, just to give you a couple of statistics, that since inception under the arrangement of anti-profiteering, which is no longer in place now, only around 704 cases were registered with the authority, and 60% of the cases were initiated within the first 3 to 4 years of implementation, and the total profiteering amount that was alleged was around 4,362 crores in these 704 cases. So we expect that last time too, these data shows that industry has largely passed on the benefits of rate cut. At that time too, the industry made public statements and committed, and you would have heard and you would have seen that a lot of industries have already come out and have committed that they will be transmitting this benefits too. Administratively, both at the state level as well as at the CBIC level, we will definitely be engaging with the industry and seeing to it that the benefits to the consumer as is planned as per the exercise is going to be transmitted to the consumers. And we do expect that since it is to the benefit of the businesses too, it is going to happen eventually. On the issue of the revenue loss, I think the question, probably you didn't appreciate the point I made the last time. It is difficult to look at these issues mathematically. So I would rather, we have done a data based on a historical number, that is 23-24 consumption. How will 26 happen will obviously depend on how consumption evolves. And we, as I said, are confident that this is going to be fiscally sustainable.
This is Deepshika from the Economic Times. One just follow-up to the revenue question. What would be what is the revenue neutral rate after these reductions? And also on compensation cess, what happens after the loans are paid, especially on the tobacco products and high-end luxury products? Is there any decision on the future of this cess? Will there be something else coming in its place, or?
I'll have the Revenue Secretary tell you about the revenue neutral rates. But on the compensation cess, we've discussed it today very clearly. It will continue on those goods which I mentioned, the tobacco and tobacco-related products, over and above the 28%, which is the system which prevails now, till such a time that we repay the loan. And after that, there will not be a cess. And those items which were with compensation cess have already been proposed to be at 40% because they are sin goods rate. They are, as I said, 40% is not part of the scheme of things, it's at the extreme. No other good will go there except for these tobacco-related products. So they will be, the incidence will be on them at 40%. Revenue neutrality.
No, I didn't get the question. Revenue neutral would mean what? No, but what? Can you explain your question? What revenue neutral would mean?
Down from 15.5, the average rate, what would it be after these reductions?
It will obviously depend upon how the transactions happen. So consumption, I am assuming what you are saying is the total value of transaction total tax collected divided by total value of transaction. So that is something one can calculate historically. For the future, as I said, we expect a lot of effects of buoyancy, compliance, consumer behavior. So this number is going to be obviously something which we will get to as we reach there.
238.
Anchal Magazine from Indian Express. Just a clarification on the tobacco part, because I believe when GST was rolled out, Centre had the powers to levy NCCD on tobacco. So how will it get levied on, say, something like pan masala? If you could elaborate that. And secondly, was there any decision regarding electric vehicles? Because that was also one of the proposals submitted by the GOM.
See, on the pan masala, tobacco and everything else, under the GST, till such a time the loan is repaid, as I said, the 28% plus the compensation cess will run. Once I clear the loan, they all come to 40%. And that's what is the GST.
EV remains at where it was. Yes, it remains at where it was, 5.
214.
सवाल चूंकि अभी काफी खबर चल रही थी कि जो 2500 जो अभी ब्रांडेड 1000 रुपए से ऊपर का जो शर्ट एंड फुटवेयर्स है, मैं राजीव हूं सर दैनिक जागरण से, तो उस पे उसको 2500 उसकी सीमा की जा रही थी, जो 2500 से ऊपर है उनको उन पे ज्यादा टैक्स लगेगा, तो ऐसा कुछ हुआ या अब सब पे जो भी फुटवेयर और गारमेंट्स होंगे 1000 रुपए से ऊपर के भी उन पे भी सिर्फ 5% ही लगेगा? इस पे कुछ फैसला हुआ? नंबर 1. नंबर 2 सर की स्मॉल कार, मिड साइज कार, तो क्या इसमें 1200 सीसी से ऊपर वाले सभी कार पे 40% लगेगा?
जहां तक फुटवेयर का सवाल है, आज के दिन 2 रेट्स थे. 1000 रुपए से कम वालों के ऊपर 12% और 1000 रुपए से ऊपर वाले के ऊपर 18% लगता था. सो जो चेंज किए गए हैं, जैसे आपको ज्ञात है कि मैडम ने पहले बताया कि 12% का रेट अभी नहीं है, तो 2 रेट जो अभी हैं वो 5 और 18 के हैं. 5% पे जो 2500 से कम वाली वस्तुएं वाले फुटवेयर हैं और 18% पे जो 2500 से ऊपर वाली वस्तुएं। आपका दूसरा सवाल किस इशू से था?
सीसी।
हाँ, मैडम ने आपको बताया कि छोटी कारें जो हैं वो 18 पे होंगी और बाकी सारी कारें जो हैं वो 40 पे होंगी। डेफिनेशन तो आई थॉट वो तो डिपार्टमेंट MHRT मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट रेगुलेटर का है। पेट्रोल की 1200 सीसी और डीजल की 1500 सीसी होती है और उसके साथ शायद लेंथ का भी एक लिमिटेशन होता है। तो जो उनका रेगुलेशंस के हिसाब से छोटी कारें हैं वो हमारी 18 पे रहेंगी। हम लोग अलग से कोई नया डेफिनेशन उसका नहीं बना रहे हैं।
45.
I had a related question on hotels and on air travel. Again, there were two classifications there. So if, and I suppose, I think all these would be in the detailed press release that you'd be issuing, but if you could just help us.
269.
Thank you, ma'am. This is Girish from Mint. Ma'am, some states had suggested that there could be a new duty imposed on, items on the 28%, which will move to 40%. Has that been considered? And secondly, ma'am, there is no cess applicable on high-end cars, which has moved to 40%, right, ma'am?
Once an item has moved to 40%, there's nothing more to be added.
Okay, ma'am.
Because the maximum rate which you can levy on a car, on any item is 40%. And in the 40% category, we've put all the tobacco and tobacco-related sin goods and super luxury items only.
Number 3.
Hello, ma'am. This is Priyoshmita from Informist Media. Ma'am, first I wanted a clarification. Are we still looking at discontinuing compensation cess around November? As in, is that the timeline we are following to repay the loans? And secondly, states had pitched for some kind of a mechanism to compensate them after the rate changes are effective because of the revenue loss. So has there been any discussion, and is the centre looking at something on those lines? Thank you.
I think I've mentioned it clearly, till such a time that the loans don't get repaid. We will continue with the 28% items and the compensation cess collection over it, particularly only those items which I read out, tobacco-related products, and they will continue till such a time I repay the loan, which is the Council has authorized the Finance Minister to stop that collection the moment the loan is repaid. I cannot speculate on the time now whether it is October or November, but it will be well within, I think, this calendar year.
Number 2.
I think, first of all, I would like to request the media to look at the GST Council as where the centre and the states are seated together. I mentioned this in the council also. The centre may be a 1/3 partner, the states put together can be 2/3 partner. But we're all in it together. So anything that which is gained or lost is for everybody. It's not as though states have lost, the centre's not gained. If all of us have lost, all of us have lost. And I don't think, and I'm glad that the Revenue Secretary had made this point in the Council, it's a revenue instance. The incidence is what is the matter. It's not a static situation. Once the rates have come down per the economic theory that you may want to quote, the buoyancy goes up. People come out to buy more. And therefore, this discussion has happened in today's council. And I have put this argument before, that the centre and the states are seated equally. And any gain or any foregone, none of that is perceived, because when rates are coming down, we expect the market to be more buoyant, people to come out and spend more. However, all of us are sitting there together. Compensate for states' loss, even centre is losing, if anything. Centre loses more in a way. Because 50-50, you divide from my 50, another 41 goes back to the states. So I want the media, particularly those who are covering the economy, finance ministry, to understand in the GST Council, the centre and the states are together in it. Nobody is a donor and nobody is a donee within the GST Council.
Number 2.
Pallavi from...
Can I just supplement, because this issue has come from many. So our earlier request was, there are two parts to this issue, and I would just request the indulgence of the media also on this. This repeated use of the word called revenue loss. So obviously somebody has lost to somebody or something to that effect. Kindly understand, this is a tax rationalization exercise which is resulting in reduction of rates of taxes to be paid, let us say, by a common man. Rates paid by on food, on health, on agricultural implements, on labor-oriented sectors like job work. I am not very sure whether loss is the right interpretation of government saying that we have given money to a consumer. It is an economy that we are talking about. Both of them are there. After all, the money which government will not collect as tax is going to be remaining in the pockets of that consumer who will end up using it. So my request is this terminology loss, because it presents the impression differently from, and which is why I had requested. There is a revenue implication, naturally. So the second part to this understanding is that revenue implication is a dynamic number, because it will depend on how response happens. Mathematically, one can calculate, that can only be done on historical data. But that historical data may not end up to be true, because we do expect behavior of consumer changing, buoyancy factors changing, compliance improving, and this has been the historical reality. You would remember that after compensation cess went away, the buoyancies really went up of GST. So we do expect things to move in the positive direction. We have done our numbers and we believe it is fiscally sustainable. The number that I told you is based on 23-24, and even with projections and expectation on other things turning in the positive side, which we are hearing both from the consumers as well as from the industry, we expect this exercise to be fiscally sustainable.
Okay, I'm Pallavi from CNN News 18. Ma'am, two things over here. There were 8 states which actually said that we want something called the state level GST on products like alcohol, petrol and real estate. Was this even discussed at the GST meeting today? And second is that they are all talking, I'm sorry to use that word, but revenue loss. 15,000 crore revenue loss is what Sitharaman said. I know there are states like Karnataka and Kerala who insisted on that, and I think that is why your meeting was delayed. How do you want to actually address that? Because many of them are also facing problems, like they're talking about floods. And finally, when you are talking about a GST restructuring, was the tariff turmoil with America an important consideration?
The tariff turmoil is not a matter which influenced the GST reform, because we've been at it now for more than 1.5 years. Some group of ministers was working on rate rationalization. Some other group of ministers a bit later was working on insurance, and so on. And compensation cess was a reality, that it is going to end the moment you paid back the loan. None of this has anything to do with the tariffs. So, no, there's nothing to do with the tariffs at all. One. Second, you were talking about petrol, diesel, 8 states. None of that was subject of our discussion, because that is not part of the GST Council at all. And the third, numbers are being thrown around. This much loss, that much loss. You've just heard the Revenue Secretary detail on the basis of 23-24 numbers. Am I right? 23-24 data, which is the last available for all the categories. And he stated what is the net amount that we'll have to be looking at. So there is nothing more. I'm not going to join forces to argue on, oh, somebody said this much, somebody else said that much. Our data is here, we put it, and that is coming out to all of you all as well in the press note.
237.
मैम तरुण शर्मा फ्रॉम जी बिजनेस। मैम दो सवाल हैं, एक क्लैरिटी के लिए पूछना चाहूंगा। जो टैक्स इंसिडेंस है, आपने कहा कि हाईएस्ट ब्रैकेट जो रहेगा वो 40% रहेगा, तो जो अभी तक सेस लगता था वो नहीं लगेगा। अब जो भी चीजें होंगी वो मैक्सिमम 40% पे होंगी टबैको प्रोडक्ट्स को छोड़ के। और दूसरा सवाल मैम, जो अनमैन्ड एयरक्राफ्ट्स, एक ड्रोन के लिए भी एक एजेंडा था, क्या मैम उस पे भी कोई फैसला हो पाया? एक चीज मैम, एक क्लैरिटी और चाहेंगे कि जो डीलर्स के पास अभी गाड़ियां खड़ी हैं, यदि वो 22 तारीख से पहले 22 तारीख के बाद बिकती हैं तो वो किस कैटेगरी में आएंगी? क्या जो अभी का जो टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर है उसमें कैलकुलेट की जाएंगी या नए वाले टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर में कैलकुलेट की जाएंगी?
शुरू में जैसे माननीय मंत्री ने आपको बताया कि ये हमारा अब 2 रेट जीएसटी स्ट्रक्चर हो गया है, तो 5 और 18 आर द रेट्स. 40 is what we consider as a special rate, and on the lower side, apart from exemption, there are some other special rates. Special rates are meant to take care of either very, very unique sectors or unique requirements or certain policy positions that government may have had on those. Typically, these special rates are considered special because they are not by their very nature part of a general structure. So they are not expected to be open-ended. It is not like this is a rate, then you can swing people things between here and there. 40 is expected, items have been identified and will positioned there. This is the way in which, that is why this is called GST rate rationalization structure. So it's a rate structure itself which has been rationalized, within which then certain principles have been followed to fit things. That is point number one. What was the second question? I would suggest that specific items and procedural issues off the cuff response will not be a good idea. Department will be issuing detailed instructions about everything, and we will see to it that those who need it receive it in transparent fashion, in a timely fashion. वही जो आपने बताया ना, ट्रांजिशन वाले जितने इश्यूज हैं इम्प्लीमेंटेशन रिलेटेड, आज जीएसटी काउंसिल का डिसीजन हुआ है, तो उसको ऑफ द कफ रिस्पांस देना ठीक नहीं होगा. वो हमारा डिपार्टमेंट डिटेल में सारे इश्यूज को एड्रेस करते हुए जवाब देगा उसका. और आज इसके बाद मैडम ने जैसे इंस्ट्रक्शन दिया है, एक फ्रीक्वेंटली आस्क्ड क्वेश्चंस का एक लिस्ट भी इशू होगा, प्रेस नोट होगा, जिसमें सारे डिटेल्स होंगे आइटम वाइज, जो आप देख सकते हैं.
189.
मैम, मैं आलोक प्रियदर्शी सीएनबीसी आवाज से. सबसे पहले जीएसटी काउंसिल के चेयरपर्सन के तौर पर आपको बधाई, क्योंकि आपने पूरे कंसेंसस के साथ ही इसका लागू करवाया. मेरा सवाल यह है कि रेट में कटौती हुई है, सबको फायदा होगा, लेकिन ये रेट आम आदमी तक इसका फायदा पहुंचे, उसके लिए क्या कोई मैकेनिज्म बनाया जाएगा? कि एंटी प्रॉफिटरिंग मैकेनिज्म अभी है नहीं, या ऐसी एंटी प्रॉफिटरिंग बॉडी है नहीं, तो कैसे इसको रेट को हम जो कंज्यूमर है उस तक पहुंचाएंगे ताकि कंपनी इसमें बेनिफिट न करे, ग्राहकों तक उनका फायदा पहुंचे?
हमने
सर हिंदी में बता दीजिए.
एंट्री प्रॉफिटियरिंग का हम लोगों ने जैसे अभी थोड़ी देर पहले जो उत्तर दिया, उसमें बताया कि पिछली बार जब ये एक्ट में एक प्रोविजन था, उस प्रावधान के अंतर्गत 704 केसेस रजिस्टर हुए थे कुल मिला के, जिसके करीब 60% केसेस पहले 3 से 4 साल में थे, जब उम्मीद होती है कि ये इश्यूज आते हैं ज्यादा. और टोटल जो प्रॉफिटियरिंग का अमाउंट एलेज किया गया था इन इश्यूज के ऊपर, वो 4,362 करोड़ का था. तो इन फिगर्स को देखकर ऐसा नहीं लगता है कि इंडस्ट्री ने ट्रांसमिशन में बहुत ज्यादा कोई मतलब इश्यूज आए, कंसिडरिंग द स्केल ऑफ द एक्सरसाइज. तो इस बार भी हम लोगों को ये काफी कॉन्फिडेंस है कि इंडस्ट्री रेट्स को ट्रांसमिट करेगा. पब्लिकली काफी मेजर सेक्टर्स की इंडस्ट्री ने ऑलरेडी ये पब्लिकली कहा है, कमिट किया है कि हम इस रेट को ट्रांसमिट करेंगे. इकोनॉमिकली ऑल्सो हमें लगता है कि फोर्सेस ऑफ मार्केट कंपटीशन विल वर्क इन दैट डायरेक्शन. एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिवली सीबीआईसी और स्टेट लेवल पे वी आर एंगेजिंग एंड गोइंग टू एंगेज विद इंडस्ट्रीज टू सी दैट द बेनिफिट जो गवर्नमेंट कमिटेड है इस बात के लिए कि ये कंज्यूमर तक पहुंचे, वो पहुंचाने के तरीके देखे जाएंगे.
49.
Ma'am, Prakash Predashi from ET Now. So what will be the overall impact on GDP after implementing these rate rationalization decisions?
Again, something on which you would like to speculate on. It depends on how people have received this rate reduction. And they'll have to come out and once you have a couple of months going with all the purchases, then we'll be able to get some number. It'll be too much for me to speculate on it now, but I think it'll have a very positive impact on the GDP.
209.
Prashant Sahu from Financial Express. So the rate reductions will have a positive impact on the consumption and it will also help widen the taxpayer base. So the revenue implication, as the Secretary said, is about 48,000 crore. So as per your calculations, how soon it will be, neutralized, given that the buoyancy will be there, consumption will increase and the taxpayer base will widen?
So this seems to be different ways of asking the same question, which is already answered. I don't think you got what I explained. I did not say 48,000 is an implication for this year. I said 23-24 data of consumption says, if you calculate, with that consumption being what it is going to cost 48,000 crore. But then I also supplemented it by saying that these numbers will be dynamic because of the parameters I explained. So we'll have to see as we go along, as we go further. But as Madam said, it is going to have a positive impact on economy. We are hopeful, and we do believe that this is going to be positively taken in both by the business, trade, industry, as well as consumers.
184.
मैम अजय मिश्र दूरदर्शन से प्रधानमंत्री जी का भी रिएक्शन आ गया, उन्होंने आपको बधाई दी है, जो जीएसटी काउंसिल है उसके सभी सदस्यों को बधाई दी है, लेकिन सबसे लास्ट में उन्होंने कहा है कि ये रिफॉर्म्स छोटे और मध्यम उद्योगों को ईज ऑफ लिविंग में मदद करेंगे, तो ये शायद संदेश पहुंचना चाहिए, उस पर मैं थोड़ा सा आपसे क्लैरिफिकेशन चाहूंगा, कैसे फायदा पहुंचाएगा एमएसएमई सेक्टर को?
एमएसएमईज को बहुत सारे फायदा है इसमें, क्योंकि अपने शुरुआत में से ही हम बोल रहे हैं, वो आपको मैंने इस प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में भी कही, स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म भी किए हैं, कंप्लायंसेस के लिए उनको बहुत समय नहीं लगेगा और सिस्टम भी सिंपल हो गया है, रजिस्ट्रेशन भी सिंपल है, और क्लासिफिकेशन के वजह से जो कंफ्यूजन आता था वो भी अभी नहीं होना है। ऊपर से इन्वर्शन करेक्शन जब हम कर रहे हैं, रिफंड्स तुरंत मिलेगा और जहां इन्वर्शन नहीं है पैसा लॉक नहीं होएगा, मतलब मंथ तक यू वेट करो, आई मीन यू हैव पुट द मनी इन, यू आर नॉट गेटिंग द रिफंड, वो सिचुएशन अभी नहीं है। लॉक्ड अप मनी का प्रॉब्लम जो एमएसएमई को बार बार आता है वो नहीं होने वाले हैं। ऊपर से उनका रॉ मटेरियल और उनका इंटरमीडिएरी प्रोडक्ट्स जो उनके लिए चाहिए वो सब रेट में कम हो रही है, इसीलिए उनका पूरे बेनिफिट ही ऐसे मैं समझ रही हूँ।
188.
Hello, ma'am. This is Suchandrima. I'm from INS. So, is there any changes in GST filing?
Is there any rate changes in the GST filing? Of course there are.
प्रोसेस आप बताना चाहेंगे प्रोसेस रिफॉर्म के 2-3 एलिमेंट्स, रजिस्ट्रेशन एंड
देखिए इसमें जैसे रिगार्डिंग द प्रोसेस रिफॉर्म्स many steps have been taken. One is that GST registration process has been simplified for especially for small businesses or where they are trusted applicants. So small businesses who on their own assessment
So the next generation GST reforms announced by Prime Minister Narendra Modi from the ramparts of the Red Fort on 15th of August 2025 will come into effect, and as the Finance Minister highlighted, that this is about multi-sectoral, multi-thematic focus, which will be about, the focus is on the lives of all citizens and ensuring ease of doing business for all, including small traders and businessmen. We have Professor Gaurav Vallabh joining us. Gaurav Vallabh, appreciate your time. So the GST Council has approved rate rationalization with the focus on common man, labor-intensive industries, farmers, agriculture, health, and the key drivers of the economy. What, according to you, is the big takeaway here?
See, Maria, this is a citizen-centric and people-first reform. See, the entire reform agenda is having two pillars. One is the rate rationalization, and another is making GST more simple for businesses, making GST towards the ease of living. So, except few commodities, and I can name them. Sugary drinks, number 2, tobacco, number 3, cigarettes, number 4, alcohol. Other than these three, 4 items, Maria, all products, number 4, luxury goods, except these few items, all products, whether it's a roti, chapati, paneer, ghee, hoya, bartan, footwears, apparels, specs, all items, there is a drastic reduction in their prices by the reduction in the GST rates. I just want to highlight, Maria, 3, 4 items like hair oil, shampoos. Earlier, GST rates were 18% on these items, which were used by everybody. Now it is at 5%. So you can expect a soap bar which is sold right now at 30 rupees, there will be at least 3 to 4 rupees rate price reduction in that soap bar. Similarly, butter, ghee, dairy products, earlier 12%.
Yes.
Now the new GST rate is 5%.
5%.
The ACs, fridges, the white products, all these white products, there is a drastic reduction in the GST rates. So I'm saying this is a move to increase the consumption in the economy. And as per the State Bank of India, by this move, there is an additional demand of 5 lakh crore per annum in the economy. So this is a win-win situation for all states also, because there will be a more GST collection for them. They will be getting more share from that pool, and the economy is also going to rotate, because ours is a consumption-driven economy. We produce, we consume, and that is how our wheel of economy moves.
Yes.
So this is a master stroke, Maria.
Okay, you're calling it a master stroke. The focus on drugs and medicines, do you think that was a crucial sector where relief was needed for the Aam Aadmi?
Yes, especially, Maria, a lot of people in our country that there are many lifestyle diseases like diabetes. So glucometer, the reduction in the GST rates, the strips for the glucometers, there is a reduction in the GST rates. So there, it's a common man's reform. It's a citizen-centric reform. It's a people-first reform, and it is financial reforms also. Why I call financial reforms, Maria? Because it improves the ease of living of businesses as well as the citizens. I will give you one example that it is going to boost demands in the labor-centric industries of MSME, because that's why these reforms are highlighted at this particular point of time. Lot of labor-centric industries are going to have a big boost in their demand, and that is how the production cycle of these labor-centric industries are going to start. And last but not least, Maria, there was a very specific problem, a technical problem we used to call it as a inverted rate structure. This time, that issue was also resolved under that inverted rate structure problem or inverted duty structure problem. The input GST was higher than output GST. So some component of GST become unclaimed. So that issue got resolved now. In lot many commodities, in lot many products, there was a inverted duty structure. That issue was also resolved. So it is a structural reform. It's a citizen-centric reform. It's a people-first reform. It's a financial reform. And overall, it moves the economy to at least by 0.6 to 1% of GDP. There is a positive stimulus in the economy by today's decision.
Okay, so you have broken it down really well, Professor Vallabh. Really appreciate your time. Let me bring in S.C. Garg, former finance secretary, who joins us on this broadcast. We also have Siddharth Zarabi joining us. Santosh Mehrotra, economist, joins us. Also, Sanchita Mukherjee. Sanchita, as someone who watches it very, very closely, I'm looking at the press release which has come in, and of course it talks about various slabs. But do you see this actually fitting into that space of next generation reforms? And what makes it next generation?
Yes, absolutely, Maria, and it's such a pleasure to be here. This is quite a momentous decision indeed. And the way we see it is that the states and the center has worked very, very effectively in this federal structure in terms of the GST rationalization, which was so required in today's date to bring about the next wave of consumption in India. If one were to look at, I just quote the SBI report, which was also released, the SBI economist report, which states that the GST revenue loss, if albeit it might be impactful in the short term, in the long term, actually the rationalization is always a net beneficial to even the states. Not just because of the boost in consumption, but if one were to look at the rationalizations which have happened in July 2018 and post that in October 2019, one would see in the longer run, because there's a 50% revenue sharing which happens with the center and the states, plus there is a 41% tax devolution which comes to the states. So in the last 5 years, the states actually have been compensated 9.14 lakh crores, which is 63,000 crores more than what was expected and targeted because of this tax devolution, which comes to them. So similarly, in this current structure also, the biggest debate, the flash in the pan point was that whether the states will be compensated enough. But what very nicely, very succinctly put across by the SBI report is that, yes, over the longer run, the states will actually even be compensated well. And consumption, of course, will be given a huge shot in the arm. So this is quite a historic moment.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that the GST Council functioned in near unanimity with all the states on board with the decisions which have been taken is a signal that the state and the center has been working together. As the finance minister said, it was almost like a team which was at work here. Let me bring in Arshpreet Kadial, who is the national spokesperson of the Congress. Also joining us now is Gopal Krishna Agarwal, national spokesperson of the BJP. But before I bring in the politicians, I want to understand from you, SC Garg, what do you think is the big takeaway from this, this reform? The finance minister says that this will ensure stability and predictability in the GST.
See, there are many pluses. The rate structure has been rationalized. So you have now effectively a two rate structure of 5% and 18%. I think that's a big move. There is across the board reduction in the effective GST rates. A lot of goods have moved from 28% to 18%, from 18% to 5%, 12% to 5%, and like that. So there is a widespread reduction of the effective GST rate. So I think that's another plus. Thirdly, I think the reforms will bring or eliminate a lot of classification disputes. Inverted duty structure has been corrected substantially. So I think there is a lot to say positive about what has been effected. I'm not convinced on the side of what the loss, whether you tell it's implication or loss, the whatever name you call it.
Yes, they are terming it as revenue implication, not revenue loss at 48,000 crores.
And Revenue Secretary was right in providing the calculations that if you take 23-24 consumption and apply the new rates, this is the net impact of 48,000 crore. But what will happen now? I think with so much of reduction, definitely in 25-26, there would be loss of revenue to the states and also to the center. How soon, when this would be compensated by the higher consumption? In any case, every year there is a growth in consumption. So that consumption has to be over and above what the normal growth in consumption is. That's a dicey thing. It's very difficult to put an estimate, but it's a reality that there would be loss. Lastly, to my mind, the fact that the compensation issue has been sort of finally decided in the manner it is decided. I think this will bring clarity. Of course, the states will need to be prepared for, in the short run, at least for 1 year to 2 years, to be prepared to suffer some losses.
Okay, so you are of the opinion that the states will suffer some losses. Santosh Mehrotra, your thoughts on what will be seen as a simplification or rationalization of the entire GST?
Well, simplification and rationalization hopefully will enhance coverage of the GST, because the total coverage of the GST, my understanding is currently stands at about 14 million enterprises. The fact of the matter is that there are nearly 4 times as many enterprises in the country, and they're not even registered anywhere, forget about being registered in the GST. So only the registered small, the registered medium are going to be captured here. And it's a good thing that this rate has been rationalized. Better late than never. It should have never been 5 rates in the first place. In fact, the fact of the matter is that there were 45 rates in place till this morning. I'm glad that this has finally happened. We were never in favor of 5 rates in the first place. We were always, independent economists were always saying that the number of rates should have been much, much less. It's happened very late, so it's good. We know that the short-term losses will be there, but one hopes that over time the losses will be recompensed because the coverage will increase. Because let's just keep this in mind, Maria, that over the 8 years that the GSTB has been in place, as a proportion of GDP, the contribution of GST relative to when we began before on the 30th of June 2017, the day before GST was implemented, we have just come to that level of contribution. In other words, as a proportion of GDP. We keep hearing that, oh, the overall size of contribution of GST has been increasing. It's been increasing every month and yada, yada, yada. The fact of the matter is, as a proportion of GDP, it was falling. It has only just reached that level. So the point is that we need to increase coverage. The tax to GDP ratio of the government needs to increase, because government expenditure is not increasing. Just because you're spending on infrastructure doesn't mean you're spending on health, doesn't mean you're spending on education, So there are really expenditures, you are cutting expenditure on ICDS. The fact of the matter is that you've cut corporate tax rate, you've now cut personal income tax rate, now you've cut GST. So where is the revenue going to come from? So, clearly, the government needs to think about how to rationalize expenditure as well. Make sure. Yeah.
Yes. So the point really is now that the government says that they expect industry to pass down the benefits of rate cuts eventually. So the onus is also on the industry here. But because there was near unanimity in the GST Council, Arshpreet Kardial, Centre and the states were seated together, is the point being made by Finance Minister here. And she has thanked each and every person who was part of the GST Council, which includes all the state finance ministers. So one thing is clear, there can be no politics over this. The states and centre have played equal role in ensuring that there is this festive bonanza.
Thank you for the question. First and foremost, as for the law of the land, in a federal structure, it is the duty and responsibility of the centre to compensate states for the revenue loss. Now, because of the GST reform, there will be losses incurred and the states will have to suffer a massive revenue loss of thousands of crores, which basically means that the governance will be affected. the schemes that are made for the people, the policies that are made for the people, everything would be affected. The people would be affected. So the first question here is that will there be compensation given to the states? Number one. Number two, it's a specific question for the Bharatiya Janata Party spokesperson. Number two, how much would it be, and then by when would it be given? We need a timeline here. It has to be made time bound. The reason behind that is because the last time's GST dues, they have still not been paid by the center to the states. The states are still waiting for the thousands of crores which should have been paid to them back in the day when the changes were being made in the GST. And other than that, when the VAT system was done away with, the dues of the states are still not paid by the center. And in fact, due to the flood situation, Punjab has sought around 60,000 crores, in which there's 50,000 crores of GST. And which is to be now used for the welfare of the people, to rescue them, to compensate them, etc. So what does the center have to say on that? And number two, now that the 28% slab and the 12% slab has been done away with, we do understand that the center, we do hope rather that the center will make good use of the money that they would get through the GST.
Yes, absolutely. Arshpreet, then will you also not take credit? Because, you know, if you look at the various sectors which are likely to be impacted, it includes the farmers. Something that all of you reach out to. They are a constituency which is of necessity, political necessity to all the political parties. So when it is about these reforms, of course, the Prime Minister was leading it. The states have contributed it. So will you be also taking some credit in it?
See, we are actually the kind of party that likes to give credit, not take credit. That's for the Bharatiya Janata Party.
So, so since all the states have been on board here, that's the question to